Right, increasingly big business, and we've been talking about this for a long time. When I was in office, I was consistently a conservative vote, and which was really in line with business because business just wanted lower taxes, less reform, less regulation, and that's fine with me. That's where most conservatives are. And so conservatives, by and large, have been those voices that have created an environment that's conducive to business. But then something happened. About the last 15 to 20 years, business has become the mules for the left's social policy. And they're getting involved in all kinds of elections. And it's gotten so bad that Republican leaders across the board are speaking out about it because it's way beyond social policy, even to elections. Last week, the Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell spoke out about business opposing election reforms in Georgia. Here's a part of what he had to say.
Warning, if you will, to corporate America is to stay out of politics. It's not what you're designed for. And don't be intimidated by the left into taking up causes that put you right in the middle of one of America's greatest political debates.
Now, he went on to explain further that, look, they have a right to be involved in politics, but he said you ought at least read the bill first because like President Biden, who, by the way, is the recipient of 4 Pinocchios from the Washington Post, was lying about the bill. And so are these CEOs. I think it's intentional. So this weekend, about 90 or so of these woke CEOs gathered for a confab to talk about how they could oppose these election reform measures. Now, remember, states are the ones that have the rights and have the responsibility, rather, to ensure that elections are free and fair. And they conduct these elections. And we saw all kinds of problems, irregularities in the November election. And so they're fixing them. We had the governor of Georgia on a couple of times talking about this. Arizona fixing their laws. These woke CEOs doing the business for the left are saying they're organizing to oppose them. Joining me now to talk more about this is Tyler O'Neill, senior editor at PJ Media. Tyler, welcome back to the program.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me, Tony.
All right, so tell us about this confab that took place. Who was there and what were they talking about?
Yeah, so it's really terrifying that you had about 90 CEOs and I think it was about 120 of America's top corporate leaders gathering in person and virtually to strategize new ways to combat election integrity laws. And we don't have a full list of everybody who was there, but among those who attended were NFL Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank, James Murdoch, the son of Rupert Murdoch, AMC Theater CEO, law firm chairman, Ariel Investments co-CEO, Walmart CEO Doug McMillon, United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby, American Airlines CEO Doug Parker, Levi Strauss company chairman Chip Berg, and LinkedIn CEO Reid Hoffman, among others.
So they were all gathered to talk about how we can make sure that there's no corruption in our elections, right?
Yeah, they were gathered to fight in this continuing saga of woke capital attacking election integrity laws that, as you noted, are extremely important and actually extremely popular following the 2020 presidential election. And the claim isn't necessarily that, Donald Trump, I supported Trump, but the claim isn't necessarily that there was enough fraud that Trump won. The claim, more importantly, is that the levers were tilted in Joe Biden's favor. So you had the Center for Tech and Civic Life, which directed cash infusions to blue areas, ramping up turnout that helped Joe Biden clinch the election. And according to a recent poll from the Honest Elections Project, 77% of Americans support requiring an ID to vote. And that includes 64% of Black voters. And most voters, 64%, said they want to strengthen voting safeguards to prevent fraud rather than eliminating them to make voting easier. And even majorities of Black voters and independent voters said that they want to strengthen election integrity in this way.
Yeah, you've got a piece that you put out on this, and I encourage people to read it. You can read it at tonyperkins.com on this meeting that took place this past weekend. But I want to connect some of the dots. These corporate CEOs, people like, not that he was there, but Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook put in, $450 million. You mentioned what they did in terms of going into these blue precincts with their voter boxes and money that they gave to these elections. And it's interesting, Arizona actually passed reform measures that Governor Ducey signed into law that restricts outside money coming in, like Zuckerberg's, where they actually, statistically, it appears that his involvement could have very well tilted the outcome of that election by targeting these Democratic counties with their efforts.
Yeah, it's quite frankly terrifying, the influences that we're starting to see after this election. You had the Center for Tech and Civic Life. You had all these local and state Democratic leaders pushing changes that fundamentally altered the way that the election was held in the name of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. But in reality, these are things that boosted Democratic turnout. And then, of course, the thing that I still can't get over is how the media and the legacy media and big tech decided to clamp down on the Hunter Biden story and a few other key stories that broke shortly before the election. And all of these things together really kind of propped Joe Biden up when he was the less convincing of the candidates. He was the less energetic. He was the kind of, I think most Americans would say, having a candidate that old who spent a lot of time in his basement would be a serious concern. But the way that the levers were pulled, and of course, Trump was controversial, but I think he in a lot of the issues that we care about.
All right, so we're going to leave it there for today. Tyler, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to talk with you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, Tony.